Hey everyone, welcome to the Camelback Ventures Entrepreneurship Is Criminal Justice Reform panel. My name is Danielle and I'm an associate on the fellowship team and I will be your moderator for today's panel. If you didn't know, this month marks the 1-year anniversary of Camelback's Entrepreneurship Is campaign. Over the past year, we have been highlighting the inspirational stories of Camelback Fellows and other phenomenal entrepreneurs who are building ventures that positively impact our communities and are truly redefining the meaning of entrepreneurship. I'm really looking forward into diving into this critical conversation on criminal justice reform and hearing how our panelists are using their unique perspectives, lived experiences, and expertise to transform the criminal justice system. Today, I'm honored to be joined by some of our incredible Camelback Fellows, Devshi Mehrotra, Patrick Rodriguez, and Terrance Lewis. Before we jump into it, I'd love to do a quick round of introductions just so that our audience gets to know y'all a little bit better. So I'd love to hear your name, your pronouns, your location, your venture name, and a brief description of your venture. And Devshi, I'll pass it to you first.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I'm Devshi. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am currently in New York City, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of JusticeText. At JusticeText, our ultimate goal is to improve legal outcomes for low-income criminal defendants. We have developed AI software that automatically flags instances of police misconduct across thousands of hours of body-worn camera footage, and we put that technology in the hands of public defenders.
Wonderful. Patrick, would you like to go?
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you guys for having me today. My name is Patrick Rodriguez. My pronouns are he, him, his. My venture is the Georgia Coalition for Higher Education in Prison. We're based out of Atlanta, Georgia. We service the entire state. And our mission is to create pathways for people who are currently incarcerated or formerly incarcerated to obtain post-secondary degrees.
And Terrance. Oh, I can't hear you.
My apologies.
Thank
you for having me, Danielle. My name is Terrance Lewis, and I'm the founder and president of the Liberation Foundation, which is, my pronouns is he, him, his, which is based out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and it's called the Liberation Foundation. And what we do is we advocate on behalf of pro se litigants, those individuals who do not have legal representation. We offer them an unabridged arc of support to help them by advocating on their behalf to get them home and to provide them with the necessary resources for them to remain home.
I'm so glad that I get to be with the three of y'all here today. And to start off the conversation, we know that it is no secret that the criminal justice system is a broken system, right? Disproportionately impacting Black, Indigenous, people of color, and especially low-income communities. And this is significantly driving inequity and injustice in the US. So I'd love to hear from all of y'all. How is your organization contributing to a more just, equitable, and empathetic criminal justice system? Terrance, would you like to go first?
Sure. The Liberation Foundation, and this acronym is TLF. Not only has TLF been actively assisting individuals to overturn their wrongful convictions case by case, but we also have been seeking assistance, the authority for assisting a greater number of pro se litigants to be able to gain them access to their pretrial discovery, which so that they can receive it in a timely manner. The reality is that is often the difference between a continued unjust incarceration and seeking relief is the lack of funding or having availability to your actual case information. So to that extent, we have dedicated a considerable amount of our resources and petitioning for access to their case file, so that poverty and a lack of representation don't be the reason that they remain and rot in jail. Another thing in regards to after assisting them once they get home, we are trying to we are trying to actually excuse me, I apologize. We are also seeking to do participation in conferences with students who actually have the desire to go into the field of the criminal justice sector, whether it's for the state and a DA, or whether, for as a state attorney, to introduce them to formerly incarcerated individuals. Because the reality is, by teaching them, the reality is that is often the DAs who turn a blind eye to the obvious concerns and to justice, or the defense counsels who are unwilling to ruffle feathers, right? Or they don't have, they lack the concern to do the extensive research for the individuals who are poverty stricken. So this is what we're trying to do over at the Liberation Foundation.
Wonderful. And I'm excited to hear more about that as we dig into this conversation. Patrick, would you like to go?
Yeah, thank you so much. So we at the Georgia Coalition for Higher Education in Prison are contributing to justice, equitable, and an empathetic system in a way that I think we do it just simply by providing opportunity. People encounter the criminal legal system, and when they do, they are sentenced to prison or probation, parole, etc. And a lot of times those individuals haven't really had a meaningful interaction with education to begin with. And so our first interaction with the system is education. You literally start going to school K through 12, and then traditionally you go to college if you're able to, if you have that opportunity there. And then individuals who have a tough time in their younger years, a lot of times they end up in prison or doing something that might not contribute to a forward moving life. And so what we do at the Georgia Coalition for Higher Education in Prison is we recognize that education breaks barriers, education increases access to opportunity, education decreases the chances of your sons and daughters getting incarcerated, because we know that incarceration doesn't just impact you, it impacts the family. And so when I also think about empathy, I think that there is something beautiful that happens when you graduate students inside of a prison system. That sentence within itself is kind of contentious if you think about it. But also at the same time, when you have wardens and central office come down to see a graduation, they're able to see a human side of individuals in a way that maybe they might not have been able to see otherwise. And so by supporting those graduations, by supporting programs throughout the state of Georgia, we've seen an increased number of those graduations and students enrolled. And we're seeing students do absolutely fantastic. And I believe that is how we are contributing to the question that you asked just a moment ago.
Thank you, Patrick. And yeah, some of that impact on future generations is something that I'm hoping to touch on later in this call as well. And Devshi, would you like to go?
Yeah, 100%. So at JusticeText, we are working to help address the public defender crisis that is facing America. In this country, we have a really unique constitutional right to legal representation for every single individual who's been charged with a crime. And that right is available to you whether or not you can actually afford legal counsel. However, the reality of the system on the ground doesn't quite live up to those ideals. 90 to 95% of criminal cases end up with a plea bargain because of a lot of the systemic underfunding and under-resourcing of public defender offices. And one of the really big transformations that's taken place within our criminal justice system is the sheer volume of police interactions that are now being recorded. And so on the one hand, that is an incredible step towards greater oversight and accountability. But I think what a lot of people don't realize is that public defenders, the people who are best positioned to hold police accountable, simply do not have the time and resources to diligently sift through hours and hours of footage. And so that's where me, my co-founder Leslie, thought that we could bring some of our expertise as young computer scientists to alleviate the burden of that discovery review. And We've built AI software that allows you to go through all this footage a lot more efficiently. And we've heard incredible stories of public defenders unearthing really critical pieces of evidence, really clear contradictions in what was said in a police report and what was actually captured on video because of this technology we've developed.
Thanks, Devshi. I'm so grateful to have your tech lens on this issue as well. But I want to thank y'all, the three of y'all, for helping us set the stage by describing the important work that you're doing. We know that the deeply negative impact of incarceration has on an individual, also impacts their family and their community. And we know that these impacts aren't just felt today, they're proven to impact generations down the line, which is something that a few of y'all have already talked about. And we can see this today when we look at the US racial wealth gap. So my next question for y'all is, how do you balance the need to make change right now with the long-term change within our legal system so that it promotes justice rather than incarceration? And Patrick, I'll ask you to go first.
I think I need to balance my answer to that tough question. You're coming in hot here, Danielle. So I think when we think about the need to make change right now, I mean, change needs to happen immediately, but we understand that change doesn't happen like that. I just wish that the acceleration for change was at the same rate of mass incarceration and the increase of people going to go to prison. I mean, everything happened around the 70s, 80s, and we're looking at a 20, 30-year span and things dramatically boomed because there was an investment in incarceration. I would like to see that same investment in other promotions beyond incarceration. Until we see that same level of investment, I don't think there will be an offset of that. I also think it's really important to understand that we're still in the age of mass incarceration. I think people talk about mass incarceration as if it's something of the past, but we haven't seen a decrease, nor have we come close to the levels of incarceration that we were at before the 1994 crime bill and some other things that were put into legislation like stop and frisk that led us to where we are today. And so when you think about all of those things and you kind of weigh them together and you balance what we're doing as the Georgia Coalition for Higher Education and Prison, it goes back to exactly what I said in my first answer. We believe in education. We believe in what education can do for people. And so as much as there's sometimes a singular story of somebody coming and doing amazing things and changing policy, et cetera, we're educating individuals and they are naturally just going to begin to stand up for what they see as wrong because they have the language, they have the education, they have the opportunity, the problem solving skills to now say, hey, this isn't right. So how can I begin starting to change it? And whenever you start to multiply that, I think that in the long run, I think that does equate to the change that you would be referencing in the question that you asked.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Patrick. Terrance, would you like to weigh in as well? Oh, I'm having trouble hearing you.
Apologies. Yeah, to echo everything exactly what Patrick said. This I think this is a major. It should be a major continuation and focusing on this part of criminal justice system reform. With reform, a lot of individuals who have been taken away from society, lost their lives, been stripped away, from their family, their communities. They have been forgotten. I believe that that the accountability, there should be extreme accountability on behalf of those, who afflict, these atrocities, right? So that they don't no longer happen again, or visit upon anyone else. The unfair practices that continues to be opposed on the people, it still exists. Like you said, mass incarceration, is at an accelerated rate. So in order to, rectify that, and things have to be put in place so that we can go ahead and start, trying, to rectify that which has occurred.
Yeah, thank you both for shedding light on the tension between those two. Devshi, as a Camelback alumni from the Conscious Tech track, I'd love to call you in to dive into the intersection of criminal justice reform and technology. So as the criminal justice system has become increasingly tech dependent, it seems that most tech solutions are being used to contribute to expediting arrests and incarceration. How can technology help tackle the underlying problems that contribute to the high number of people in the US prison system? And what impact can that have on the communities most affected?
Thanks so much. And I mean, that's a question that I feel very strongly about because when I started building JusticeText, I was still a student. I was studying computer science out in Chicago. And it seemed like every couple months, there would be a new breaking news story about how the Chicago PD developed a gang database with absolutely no checks, balances, no audit systems. They rolled out predictive policing tools within their local courts that were disproportionately harming people of color, low-income communities. And it seemed like time and time again, all these applications of technology were, as you said, being used to further exacerbate a lot of the inequities that already exist within our criminal justice system. And, Leslie and I, as two young people of color who also, spent a lot of time like working in Silicon Valley, seeing the incredible power of this technology to seriously transform people's lives for the better, started thinking that why is it that technology is consistently developed in ways that are not aligned with what we consider to be our values? And unfortunately, it's just an extension of the fact that police departments are funded at, like 50 to 100 times the level of your local public defender's office. And so if you're a technology developer, you're looking at where there's budget, especially if you don't bring any sort of lived experience to the work. It's going to be clearly easier to build solutions for law enforcement or for prosecution because ultimately that's where there's support, that's where they're funding. However, that doesn't mean that technology in and of itself has to be a force for exacerbating inequities. And I think the most beautiful part of building JusticeText for the public defense community has been seeing their reactions when I show up at their office, give them a demo of the technology, and they tell us this is the first time they feel like someone is building something expressly for them and their clients. I just visited one of the New York public defender offices a couple days ago, and the type of excitement that I got was so exciting because particularly in the city, when it comes to discovery reform challenges, the overarching narrative is the burden that it places on prosecution. There's been a lot of funding, a lot of staffing, and a lot of cool new technology that's been invested in local DA's agencies to help address a lot of those workload concerns. And I think we're playing a small part in changing that narrative, that when you put this type of technology to make people like public defenders more efficient, it can truly change the dynamic within our criminal justice system.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Devshi. And it's so wonderful to be on this call with y'all and hear the updates of all the incredible work that y'all are doing. And I'm going to transition us to talk about grassroots activism. So throughout the history of the United States, grassroots activism has been a powerful force of change, right? From the abolitionist movement to the civil rights movement to environmental and social justice movements of today. Grassroots activism has given voice to undervalued communities and has challenged the status quo. So I'd love to hear from y'all. How can grassroots movements and social ventures work together to support folks who are navigating our legal system or have been incarcerated? And Terrance, would you like to go first? Oh, I'm having trouble.
Thank you. I think that grassroots activism and social ventures, that they align, having the common goal, right, and bring them about a change in the criminal justice system. That indeed that's something that's possible in real time. I say that because a lot of times, a lot of organizations, grassroots, and they have, they want to arrive at the same goalposts, but probably, in the meantime, have different methods in getting there. But I believe that if grassroots activism and social ventures actually, combine and take the same approach and utilizing, its resources, that indeed we would definitely see the needle change. And for instance, say for example, those organizations who advocate on behalf of mandatory life reform, if they were to align with, let's say, another, organization, grassroots organization, or social venture, who is advocating on behalf of decriminalizing small hanging fruit, right? And they would align with the same common goal and purposes, and to rectify, what we see and can identify what the problem is now, then the latter can, use, its resources, to help sustain the former. So that's my take on, grassroots and social ventures, team and partner, with the common goal and having the intent, to really, move the needle in real time.
Yeah, thank you, Terrance. Devshi, would you like to weigh in too?
Yeah, I mean, I think grassroots activism has radically transformed public perception of the criminal justice system, and a lot of its deep-rooted injustices over the past couple decades. I mean, I myself am someone who doesn't have lived experience of the criminal justice system, but was so inspired by the coursework that I took, by the professors I learned under, by the local community leaders that I was surrounded with, that I was propelled to try and take action in my local community. And I think all of that scholarship, all of that lobbying, all of that lawmaking is such a critical part of driving systemic reform. However, I do think that we can't stop there, because a lot of these, in the context of the work that we do, a lot of the legislation around body-worn cameras, which I think was a step in the right direction, happened like a decade ago. And yet, to this day, we are still struggling to figure out what true accountability within our system looks like. And I think that's because we kind of stopped at the policy win, and we didn't think about what does it actually take to implement a lot of these changes and allow for the different actors in the space to be able to actually enforce that oversight and accountability. So I'm excited to see our generation of innovators, entrepreneurs, nonprofit leaders find ways to take kind of that public sentiment and those grassroots wins and actually translate them into reality on the ground.
Yeah, and that invitation for folks to join the movement is the perfect transition into my next question, which is actually for Patrick. For all of the aspiring entrepreneurs in the audience who are looking to drive positive impact in the criminal justice reform space, where do you see the biggest areas of opportunity for them to get involved or to start building solutions?
So I think you, and I want to reference lived experience. Devshi, thank you so much for bringing that up in your last response. I started with my own lived experience. I did 5 years in the Georgia Department of Corrections. I got out in December of 2019, and I didn't have a meaningful opportunity to obtain an education. And then I came out and came home. Jay Holder is a conceptual founder of the Georgia Coalition for Higher Ed in Prison, and Dr. Thomas Fabizak and I are the inaugural co-executive directors. And it was a group of individuals that were coming together trying to build those pathways. But the reason why I got into this work is because it paralleled what I was trying to do. And so even when I was trying to answer my college application and I had to write these essays and collect these documents to the clerk of court, I was able to use that information and share it with other people and say, hey, this is actually how you can do this. It's not that scary. I can help you write your essay. I can help you kind of formulate a 200-word response or something to hopefully get you through. And then that led to where I am today, And so if you're looking to get involved into this space, I would say 99% of the people have had some type of injustice in their life, one way or the other, whether it is with the criminal legal system, whether if it's family violence, whether it's getting bullied at school or something like that. I think when you start with that, and might be a little tough to say, but your challenges aren't for you, they're for other people. And so whenever you kind of have a lens like that, then it allows you to share those experiences so that people who are potentially going through the same thing that you're going through don't have to go through it alone. And then when you start like that, then you find a community. And then once you find that community of individuals that are working to potentially impact the same thing, that's when you can start stepping in unison with them and change can start to happen. That's when you can start creating groups of support. That's when you can start thinking about policies that are impacting that particular challenge that you went through. And then, so one thing I will say as well is you might be the only person to bring that challenge to the table, not because other people haven't gone through it, because maybe somebody hasn't spoken up about it yet. So that's why it's doubly that much more important for you to share your story, whatever it intersects with, and to say, hey, I don't want anybody else to go through this. Can we legislate this? Can we change internal company policy? Can we change university policy? Can we have a conversation about this? Because this isn't right. And when you stand up for what isn't right, that's when the arc of justice begins to slowly curve in the direction that it's supposed to.
That's great advice, Patrick. And I really appreciate all three of you sharing parts of your stories throughout this call. And I've been so grateful to work with all of y'all because you are all innovators and leaders working at the forefront of this work. And so that leads me to my last question for you, which is, in a few words, can you share what impactful entrepreneurship means to you as it relates to the work that you are doing? And Terrance, would you like to go first?
Sure. Impactful entrepreneurship, what it means to me in brief. Allow me to start by saying, because of ventures like Camelback Ventures and the likes who have invested in, upstart in, organizations such as the Liberation Foundation and the likes, cultivating it, helping cultivating it, allowing it to have a collaboration or uses, shares platform to grow, to be able to do the work that's needed out here, like what Patrick and how the panel said on the ground. I think that impactful entrepreneurship, it means equity, equity and pursuing, truth and justice, the collaborations and the collaborations and, sharing the same common goal. And like I said, allowing one another to collaborate and use each other's platforms, to continue the further on, in entrepreneurship. So that's what, when I hear that word, impactful entrepreneurship, I think of equity, equity and sharing, in regards to truth, and pursuing, and justice continuously. Yeah.
Thank you, Terrance. Patrick and then Devshi, would you like to share?
Yeah. So when we think about impactful entrepreneurship and what it means to me, I don't know. I mean, well, first off, entrepreneurship is taking a chance. It's speaking up about the idea that you have and sharing it with people, I think, is like the first step before you raise money, before you become a LLC or a 501c3 or any of those different things. I think you start telling people, hey, I have this idea and I want to make this come to fruition. And then what's going to happen, and what I've seen happen, is there's alignment that starts to come about, and then that kind of causes a little bit of a catalyst to happen for you to want to start or move something forward. And so when I think about impactful entrepreneurship, I think of entrepreneurship of people who are looking at social challenges, social issues, and thinking like, what is one way that we can create a system to oppose or to work in tandem with the current system that is there so that the system eventually changes. And so when we think about entrepreneurship, we think about our quarters, our profits, and our loss statements, et cetera. When I think about entrepreneurship, social impact entrepreneurship, I think about how many students we graduated. I think about how many people Terrance has been able to get out of prison. I think about how many, probation lawyers that, Devshi has been able to help look through stuff with artificial intelligence. Who knew, right? It's like, okay, but it's so cool because it's absolutely needed. And so thinking of creative ways to parallel the current systems that exist.
And I think I definitely want to echo what both Patrick and Terrance said, but I think entrepreneurship is truly like one of the most beautiful things because it allows you to translate any sort of pain or injustice that you may have experienced or seen your loved ones experience and translate those very negative emotions into something so powerful, so tangible, and so much greater than yourself. I think through the journey of trying to build an organization, you, of course, are helping the community that you set out to build a solution for, but you're also building a team around yourself of people who are so aligned, of people whose journeys you get to support. And it is difficult. No one's going to believe you when you first start, but to have an idea, a purpose and vision that you care about so strongly that you're willing to take all those rejections and still keep pushing through and make something out of that, I think that's incredible. And then I think maintaining proximity to the community that you're trying to support is also a really critical part of that impactful entrepreneurship. I think a lot of Silicon Valley kind of glamorizes this idea of building in isolation and then, sharing their inventions with the rest of the world. But I think impact-driven entrepreneurship, that proximity is a very, very critical part.
That was such a powerful and inspirational end to this panel. I just want to thank the three of y'all, Devshi, Patrick, and Terrance. I know that the work that you're doing is not easy, but I am really grateful that y'all were here today to share your insights and your expertise with us. And I know that I am walking away with a deeper understanding of the criminal justice reform space. And I'm looking forward to staying updated on all of the incredible work that the three of you are doing. If you would like to hear more from these incredible founders and show your support, be sure to check out their websites and follow them on social media. You can also learn more about Camelback Ventures and the Entrepreneurship Is movement by visiting camelbackventures.org. And lastly, I just want to thank our audience for tuning in and listening. If you join us a little bit late, a replay of this conversation will be available soon on the Camelback Ventures YouTube channel. Until next time.